Shocking secrets, how you'd never survive the Titanic's darkest night at 3 a.m., the icy waters swallowed the cries of the lost. It was the night that twisted fate into a spine-chilling disaster. The Titanic, heralded as unsinkable, became the graveyard of hope on that fateful night. At 3 a.m., the eerie stillness mingled with the haunting echoes of despair. Shivering passengers felt the grip of dread tighten around their chests. As the ship trembled, secrets came alive, floating unervingly in the frigid air. Just imagine every flicker of a lantern seemed to hide a ghostly whisper, urging survivors to remember. The horror reached new heights when a lone lifeboat, barely half-filled, swayed like a leaf in the wind. Shadows darted around, faceless and frantic, begging to be rescued. The crew, men hardened by the sea, stood paralyzed in disbelief as their visions of glory crumbled. Unbeknownst to them, a dark storm brewed not only outside but inside their very souls. Family bonds strained under the weight of desperation, the ache was palpable. You could almost hear the silent screams, the frantic heartbeats that echoed louder than any raging wave. Suddenly, a bone-chilling sound reverberated through the chilling night, the snap of the Titanic's stern as it began its fatal descent, a sound that still haunts the survivors in their nightmares. Tension crackled in the air. It was as if the universe held its breath, waiting for the inevitable end. Witnesses recounted the moments with trembling lips, detailing the frenzied race against time, the choices that tainted their hearts. "They're gone, none left. What if?" The thoughts flickered like candles about to be snuffed out, urging every soul clinging to life for one last shot at survival. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The darkness thickened as the lifeboats drifted further away, leaving behind a sea of desperate faces, some half submerged, others clinging to shattered hope. The ocean cradled their fears, swallowing their dreams like a lurking predator. Every splash was a reminder of what could have been families torn apart, dreams drowned in the abyss. A single star pierced the obsidian sky, flickering like a heartbeat. What did it know that they didn't? The night closed in, eerie and suffocating. As the chill gripped tighter, a sage figure materialized among the chaos, whispering truths veiled in shadows. "You know nothing of the darkness, nothing of the hidden," he murmured. Who was he? A guardian of lost souls, or just another phantom of regret? The passengers trembled, equally terrified and curious. Little did they know, the true secrets of survival lay not just in the waters around them but in the shadows lurking within their hearts. Would they uncover those truths before it was too late? The suspense hung thick, suffocating, leaving everyone one question away from the ultimate revelation. The shadows loomed larger as the last lifeboat receded, its outline barely visible against the moonlit chaos. A suffocating blend of saltwater and despair hung heavily in the air. Survivors huddled together, eyes fixated on the dark swath of water where hope had just been extinguished. The chilling screams of mothers calling for their children echoed through the night, intermingling with the splashing of desperate souls as they fought against the frigid grip of the Atlantic. In that dark abyss, panic ripped through the crowd as the ship's bow continued to tilt, closing the distance between life and the ever-looming depths. "We have to act. We can't just wait here," a man shouted, desperation lacing his voice. His words were a desperate rallying cry, but fear held the others captive as they looked from one face to another, searching for courage, for hope. Emerging from the wavering crowd was a young woman, her hair plastered to her cheeks, salt-rimmed eyes glinting like the darkest diamonds. Annabelle had watched as her family was swallowed by the tidal wave of chaos. Alone now, she felt a strange clarity cut through her despair. What was hidden inside her? A fire, a will, a fierce determination sparked as she stepped forward. Suddenly, she spotted a girl, no more than 10, frantically clinging to a fragment of the ship's railing, shivering like a leaf in a storm. The girl's wide eyes begged for help, and fear gripped Annabelle's chest. Moments passed, seemingly like hours, as indecision gnawed at her. Then, with a sudden resolve, she dashed towards the child. What else could she do? As she reached the girl, icy water splashed up around them, forcing Annabelle to steady herself. "Hold on tight, I'm here with you," she whispered, the warmth of her voice fighting against the chill of the encroaching sea. The child clung tightly, her tiny fingers like iron around Annabelle's wrist, a fragile lifeline amidst the descending chaos, but their relief was fleeting. The elder crew members, frantic and emotionally shattered, prowled the decks, seeking survivors to save. Blind to the suffocating danger below, one officer shouted, "Anyone left? We can't afford to waste time." They had lost everything yet were struggling against the drowning tide. The frigid water lap danced dangerously around the ship's hull, eager to swallow more lives. Annabelle knew they had to escape quickly. She pulled the girl, but with every moment, the Titanic's horrific transformation revealed its ugly secrets. The ship groaned ominously as it lurched forward, leaving the sound of snapping wood and metal screaming in their ears. Were they too late? Was hope slipping away like everything else on this cursed night? Despair clawed at Annabelle's heart, and in a brief moment of dread, she looked at the solitary star that had once guided sailors across the dark seas. What now? She thought. Just as she prepared to wrestle with the harsh reality of losing the child, a bright flash broke through the murky darkness. A lifeboat, their chance. Shouts erupted, mingling with the chaos, but it was the sound of whispered pleas that struck at Annabelle's heart. "Over here. We're here." Joy and fear intertwined. Would they be rescued, or was this just another mirage, another broken promise amidst the horror? A shot rang out, abruptly splitting the lingering fear as screams reverberated once more through the night. Annabelle froze, pulse racing. Had someone fired on them? Was there danger lurking not only in the water but also amongst the survivors? As confusion swirled like a storm, a new revelation beckoned, dark and palpable. What had she stumbled into? What secrets lay hidden in the chaos around her? And, as Annabelle stood clutching the girl's trembling form, how could they find salvation in a world crumbling beneath their feet? The answer hovered just out of reach, tantalizing yet terrifying. Would they unveil the truth before it consumed them entirely? Chaos erupted as shots fired again, cutting through the air like a knife. Annabelle flinched, pulling the girl closer, the tiny body trembling against her. Around them, fear crystallized into raw, frantic energy. Survivors screamed, huddling together while others shoved toward the edge, desperate to escape the grasping shadows of the ocean. "Stay down," a man yelled, but it was too late. Another shot rang out, this one targeting the flailing crowd, an unseen hand casting desperation into violence. The only sound louder than the crashing waves was the wild heartbeat thrumming in Annabelle's chest. "What's happening?" The girl whimpered, her voice barely a whisper, barely cutting through the clamor. Annabelle squeezed her shoulder, her own heart racing with anxiety. "I don't know, but we have to be brave. We have to keep moving." She scanned the deck, searching for a way, any way to safety. Faces twisted in terror flashed before her like flickers of light in a storm. It was all too much. As if the ocean itself had come alive, urging them toward its depths, Annabelle grit her teeth and pressed forward, determination igniting a spark within her. "Over here," she called, trying to rally a few others. She spotted a couple of guys near a lifeboat that had somehow been left behind, a small miracle amidst the devastation. They were shouting, waving their arms. The hope they clung to could be infectious, but then, cold realization washed over her. The figures surrounding them weren't just panicking survivors. They were fragmenting into factions. Fear and desperation often revealed true colors, didn't they? Someone nearby was forcing people back, blocking their path. "Get away. There's only room for a few," he barked, Eyes wide with panic and greed, Annabelle's heart dropped. Already they were being forced to choose who lived and who died. The madness that descended on them felt almost primal. "We want to let you go," she shouted, stepping forward, the girl at her side. "There are still children out here." Another shot exploded near the lifeboat, sending everyone scrambling backwards, fear surging through the crowd. "Stop! We'll drown ourselves," a woman cried, panic sparking chaos anew, shoving her way through, intent on reaching that floating sanctuary of hope. "Help us!" Annabelle screamed, willfully pushing through the tide of inertia. She felt the girl's grip tighten, the child's fear echoing her own, but she would not give in to it. "We can't leave anyone." As panic enveloped them, Annabelle turned, scrambling to grab the girl's hand. On the periphery, she glimpsed another figure, a man, soaked to the bone, darting through the wrecked bodies toward the lifeboat, a wicked glint in his eye, the next moment unraveled in grasping horror. The stranger lunged, his face contorted with rage, pushing people aside like they were mere insects. He had something, a gun aimed with determination to ensure that no one escaped without his say. "Get back!" he shouted as he braced himself on the lifeboat's edge, looking ready to make a dreadful choice that none should ever have to face. Annabelle's world collapsed into frantic decision-making. Should they run toward the lifeboat, draw attention, or try to lure the violent intruder away from the others? The icy wind stung her skin, but it was the fear wrapped around her heart that truly chilled her. Suddenly, a cry pierced through the noise, distinct and filled with urgency. "Annabelle!" Her head jerked up, recognizing the voice, someone she thought had been lost in the waters. Seeing him now, she felt a flicker of hope sparked anew, but could they reach him before the depths or the gunman claimed them? Time seemed to stretch on forever as she stood there, breathless between the divided paths of salvation and doom. As the sea roared, shadows danced around them, and the man's cold gaze bore down like a predator's. Could they fight back against fate, or would they be swallowed whole by a night of horror? What would happen when hope collides with desperation? Uncertainty clung tightly to Annabelle, leaving an unsettling question hanging in the air as she made her choice. Annabelle's heart raced as she locked eyes with the familiar face cutting through the chaos. It was Jake, her brother, his hair matted and face streaked with salt and desperation. The relief threatened to sweep her off her feet, but the reality slamming back in shook her to the core. The man with the gun could turn this moment into a nightmare in a heartbeat. "Jake!" she shouted, her voice barely carrying above the uproar. The gunman turned slightly, a flicker of recognition illuminating his wild eyes. Those eyes, they had seen too much chaos already. "Annabelle!" Jake dove toward her, his determination clear against the fraying edges of the crowd. "We need to move." Before she could react, the gunman shouted again. "I said back off." He leveled the weapon, aiming now at the gathering mass of terrified survivors. The crowd fell silent, a collective breath held between them like a fragile balloon on the verge of popping. "Please," Annabelle stepped forward, holding the girl tighter against her, as if that act alone could shield her from the impending disaster. "Don't do this. We can help you. Just let the others go." The man's face twisted with rage and fear. "Help? You think I need help? I just need this boat. Get to the back, or I swear." His voice broke, putting them all on edge. Tensions crackled between them. Annabelle glanced back at Jake, the desperation etched on his face. The girl's quivering hand in hers felt like an anchor against the raging storm inside. The sea thundered against the ship, waves crashing like the impending dread within her. Behind her, the crowd began to stir again. Someone shouted, "We can't just stand here. There's no time." That ignited a spark, pushing others towards the lifeboat. But each frantic motion sent the gunman deeper into a frenzy. "Stop!" He fired a shot, the bang sharp as glass shattering. A woman screamed, crumpling to the ground. The smell of gunpowder mixed with the salty air, making Annabelle's stomach churn. "Keep moving," she shouted, dragging the girl and Jake back a few steps. "We need a plan. We can't just let him take everyone down." Her voice cut through the shouts and cries, but the fear was palpable. The girl whimpered, and the sound ignited something fierce within Annabelle's chest. They were all more than just lives tangled in this maelstrom. They were families, futures, everything that made life worth living. Jake's eyes darted as he formulated a plan. "There." He pointed toward the lifeboat where chaos pulsed like a living entity. "If we can create a distraction, we might get everyone out." Annabelle nodded, every fiber of her being aching to act. "We need to do it now. Get the crowd moving while we keep him busy." As hope cracked through the panic, she felt dread gnawing at her gut. This was not just about escaping, it was a battle for survival. If they failed, the cost would be more than she could bear. She glanced at the others, frozen in fear, and then back at Jake. "On my count 1, 2," her pulse raced, counting down the moments of their lives. This was it. They had one shot. "Go!" With that, they charged toward the lifeboat, creating a wall of noise as Jake yelled, "Now! Move! He can't take all of us." The crowd surged with newfound urgency, but the gunman's face twisted in fury as he turned toward them. Annabelle's heart pounded in her ears. Before she knew it, the gunman was firing again, each shot echoing as hope surged and shattered like glass. Swells of chaos surged around her, and all Annabelle could see was the flicker of fear transforming into resolve. Would they reach the boat, or would that fractured hope dissolve into terror, engulfing them all? As the first droplets of rain began to fall, Annabelle realized time was running out. Would they make it to safety, or would the man at the helm decide their fates? The answer hung in the air, heavy with dread. The din swirled around Annabelle as the adrenaline surged within her veins. The crowd's frantic movements turned chaotic. People shoved against each other, desperate eyes flicking between the gunman and the lifeboat. The sound of the gun firing again reverberated through her, sharp and unmistakable, as if time itself had stopped to echo that horror. "Go! Keep moving!" Jake urged, pushing people toward the lifeboat. But the gunman was relentless. He swung the gun like a pendulum, targeting anyone who dared move too close. "Stop! I mean it!" His voice cracked, a mixture of panic and authority, sending ripples of fear through the crowd. Annabelle's stomach twisted. They couldn't just run. They needed to do something more. She looked at Jake, who was still trying to direct people with wide, frantic gestures. "Distract him, Jake. I'll take the girl." She lifted the trembling child, the girl's wide eyes reflecting the chaos unfolding. With a deep breath, Annabelle felt fear morph into resolve. She knew that if they had any shot at surviving this nightmare, she had to act. "Hey!" she shouted, her voice cutting sharply through the clamor. "Over here. You want your boat? Take me. Just let everyone else go." The gunman blinked, his gaze momentarily flickering toward her. Annabelle seized the moment, locking eyes with him. She didn't just see a desperate man, she saw a fragment of shattered humanity, someone who felt cornered, forgotten. "Let them go." The words tumbled from her, each syllable layered with every ounce of weight she could muster. "It doesn't have to be like this." The collective gasp from the crowd echoed around them, a chorus of disbelief. Some even began to inch backward, hoping that retreat would keep them safe. "Shut up!" he shouted, but there was a tremor in his voice, a flicker of uncertainty that fueled Annabelle's conviction. She needed to drive it home. "Take me in exchange." She pressed, the words spilling out before she could think them through. With every heartbeat, she felt the walls closing in, but for the girl she held, she pushed down her fear. "I can help you. Whatever you want, just let the others go." For a second, the world stood still. The gunman's expression faltered, confusion crossing his face. Annabelle's heart thrummed against her ribs. Could it work? Could her crazed offer sway him? But the moment evaporated as quickly as it appeared. Get back! He barked at her, gun wavering but still aimed toward the crowd, terror radiating from him. No one is going anywhere. Jake! Annabelle shouted, heart racing again. They needed to regroup. They needed a different strategy. She felt panic creeping in, cold and vicious. In that second, beneath the weight of their shared despair, another shot rang out, cutting deeper. The woman on the ground remained motionless, the shock painted across faces around her a tattoo of helplessness. She looked toward Jake, whose eyes were wild with fear and determination, struggling with the enormity of their choice. Then the rain poured down, heavy and sudden, washing away the fleeting remnants of hope. The gunman's figure blurred through the curtain of water. Now! Yelled Jake, and with that, he charged forward, barking commands at those still hesitating. Let us push him back. Move! But Annabelle knew one thing remained: time was slipping. As the gunman's eyes turned back toward them, wild and unpredictable, a realization washed over her like the rain drenching her clothes. There was no safety when chaos beckoned. In the tumult, Annabelle heard Jake's voice break through the noise, remember the plan. We need to hold him. Each person was inching toward the lifeboat, but it wouldn't be enough to save them all if the gunman couldn't be contained. The boat would either be their sanctuary or their tomb. Was there still a chance to escape the dread that loomed heavy? Or had they already sealed their fates by stepping into that storm? As the rain continued to beat down relentlessly, she felt the weight of the moment. Would they confront the gunman together, or would this be the end of their fight for survival? The gunman's breath rose and fell, each exhale a desperate whisper of madness. The rain was relentless now, a pounding beat drowning out the cries. Annabelle's heart raced as she tightened her grip around the girl, her small frame trembling against her. Every second counted, and fear began to seep through the resolve she'd built like a fragile wall. Listen to me. She shouted again, her voice cracking at the edges. The gunman's eyes were wild, darting between her and the panicked crowd. You can let them go. You don't have to do this. He lifted the gun, the metal glinting menacingly through the rain. Back off. He yelled, but uncertainty seeped through his words, revealing the cracks in his armor. Jake moved, inching closer to the gunman, his hands raised in mock surrender. You don't want to hurt anyone else. This isn't the way. Just think for a second. His voice cut through the madness, urging. Annabelle could feel the air thicken with tension, and she caught a glimpse of hope flickering in Jake's eyes. If they could take advantage of the gunman's moment of hesitation. Suddenly, a loud crash shattered the air, the lifeboat bucked in the tide. A collective gasp went through the crowd as they turned their heads, and the gunman's focus wavered. Seizing the brief moment, Jake shouted, now. Move. Chaos ensued. Jake lunged toward the gunman, embodying desperation that could either save them or seal their doom. Annabelle felt panic claw at her throat as she bolted in the opposite direction, pulling the little girl behind her. They needed to find safety anywhere but here. Keep going. She called back to the people around her, urging them toward the lifeboat. Hearts pumping, the remaining crowd rushed forward, breaking through the fear like a dam bursting. With each step, Annabelle struggled against her own instincts. She glanced back to Jake, who was wrestling with the gunman. The gun fired again, the loud bang echoing through the torrential downpour, the violent sound sharply contrasted by the soft patter of the rain. Jake! She screamed, the name tearing from her lips as if it was the last thread connecting her to hope. She saw him wrestle for control, their eyes locking, both of them understanding the stakes in that brief moment. Go! He yelled, voice strained but steady. The weight of his determination sent a jolt through her. But then bang! Another shot rang out. Her stomach dropped. Please! Let him go! She yelled, desperation coursing through her veins. But it was too late. A figure lurched back, collapsing onto the slick deck. The screaming erupted as people realized the implications, their bodies stumbling to find stability. Annabelle's breath hitched as dread settled in. No, 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 just get her to safety. Jake shouted, a forceful command amidst the chaos. The shrill cries morphed into gasps as their frantic retreat collided with the surge of water, rising higher around their ankles, threatening to pull them under. With pounding hearts, Annabelle and the girl reached the lifeboat just as others scrambled aboard. She turned, searching Jake's face, a silent plea for understanding wrapping around her throat. What now? A crack of thunder split the sky, cutting the air with electricity. As the gunman stumbled, confusion seeped through him. It was only a matter of time before the remaining survivors would close in on him. From the corner of her eye, she glimpsed another figure emerging from the dark. Someone else was coming to the madness. Get in. A voice commanded from the lifeboat. Annabelle hesitated, torn between safety and the loyalty that anchored her to Jake. What about Jake? She yelled into the storm. The lifeboat swayed, the water crested dangerously. But there was no response from Jake, his figure swallowed in the chaos, grappling with fate. Now, Annabelle. The voice urged again, breaking her thoughts like glass. With a forceful shove in her back, a stranger pulled her away as her heart shattered. But even as she clutched the girl close, dread filled her chest. The storm raged, and in the backdrop of swirling chaos, she couldn't shake the feeling that something they were all was about to change. What would happen to Jake? What dark turn would redefine this moment of survival? As the lifeboat began its retreat, Annabelle narrowed her eyes, scanning the storm. Would any of them escape the currents of fate, or was this just the beginning of their nightmare? The storm raged on, and the wail of something far worse than ruin hung on the horizon. The lifeboat jerked violently as waves battered it, pulling Annabelle from her thoughts. She gasped, the cold water splashing against her skin. She hugged the little girl tighter, both of them shaken to their cores. Every sense screamed danger as her eyes darted back toward the chaos unfolding on the deck. Jake, she cried out again, her voice nearly swallowed by the roar of the storm. But there was no response, only the sickening feeling that she would never hear him again. Her heart thudded in her chest, each beat a reminder of their shared resolve. Images of him risking everything surged through her mind. How had it come to this? As the lifeboat drifted further away, a chorus of screams and shouts echoed over the thunder. The lights flickered eerily on the ship, casting long shadows of frantic figures still caught in the storm. Annabelle's breathing quickened. They were so close, yet so far from true safety. Someone shuffled beside her. It was the stranger who had ushered her aboard. He shifted nervously, casting furtive glances back at the ship. We need to move away from the side, he called out, pointing toward the bow where a few survivors clung desperately to the rim, oblivious to the danger they were still in. What happened back there? Annabelle demanded, her voice rising in urgency. What about the others? Where are they? Focus. He snapped, eyes wide with adrenaline. We need to get to the lifeboats that are already away from the ship. They can't keep us here, please. His tone softened, frustration bubbling under fear. Look. He pointed at a distant lifeboat that bobbed on the waves like a cork. People were climbing into it, but from here, it looked dangerously full. Noise carried over the crashing rain, echoing desperate voices. In that moment, she made a decision. I can't just leave. She turned, scanning the darkness one last time. The haunting image of Jake fell across her mind like a thundercloud. We can't abandon him. The stranger's expression hardened. If you want to die, go ahead. But I'm not losing my life here. He looked frustrated, which ignited something in her. Fine. I'll go. With that, she made a break for the edge of the boat. But as her foot hit the edge, she felt a vice grip on her arm. The stranger breathed sharply, trying to pull her back. You won't survive out there. She yanked away, adrenaline bursting through her veins. I've got to try. Foolish. He shouted as she leaped onto the waterlogged deck of the ship. The wind whipped at her face, but determination kept her feet moving. She couldn't hear Jake, the chaos muffled in her ears, but she could feel him. She had to find him. Annabelle dashed across the slick surface, navigating around the crew members desperately trying to save others. A chaotic swirl of shadows and figures screamed instinctively, drawing her nearer. Suddenly, she caught sight of him, flat on the deck, blood pooling around him. Fear flashed through her, gripping her tighter than the storm itself. Jake! She screamed, sprinting toward him. She didn't care about the thrashing water, the broken chaos surrounding her. This was about more than survival, it was about them. But just as she reached him, the gunman appeared again from the opposite side, stumbling toward them, panic etched in his wild eyes. It was a moment of pure collision, two lives on a perilous edge. The storm's roar fell silent for that split second, and everything blurred into an oblivion of possibility. No! She shouted, throwing herself in front of Jake, her heart hammering as she faced the gunman who was now just as afraid as she felt. Get away! He screamed, but she wouldn't yield. As the rain fell heavier, a crack of lightning illuminated the gunman's trembling face. Annabelle's mind raced. She had to do something fast. Because a choice was looming, one that would change everything. And as the darkness crept back in, thick with tension, she felt the weight of the world on her shoulders. What would she risk for love? With fate hanging in the balance, she took a deep breath, preparing to take her stand. But the shadows were closing in, and with every heartbeat, the climax of their turmoil was inching closer. The storm roared on, an unyielding beast around them. Annabelle's heart raced, pounding in her chest like thunder. She faced the gunman, his hands shaking, desperation creasing his brow. Stay back! She shouted, refusing to let him reach Jake. He hesitated, but fear twisted his expression even more. You don't understand. They'll kill me if I don't finish this. The words spilled from his lips, mingled with the driving rain, painting a clearer picture of his frantic state. It was a survival instinct bubbling up from within him, a baseless terror that drove men to desperate acts. Annabelle felt her own fear rise up like bile, hot and sticky. You don't have to do this. She pleaded, making sure her voice was steady. Just put the gun down. We can all get out of here, there's still time. Time? He barked out a laugh that was both sardonic and pained. There's no time. Look around you. He gestured wildly to the chaos behind them, where the ship's lights flickered and dimmed like dying stars. This place is going down. The reality hit her like a slap across the face. The ship was breaking apart. With the storm still unleashing its fury upon them, Annabelle saw the flickering light of another lifeboat. It bobbed far away, seemingly untouched by the madness engulfing the deck. Help us. We need to stop. The gunman's fingers tightened on the trigger as he stepped closer, the glint in his eyes sharp with panic. You think I'll let you leave? I can't. I want. And there it was, the line between right and wrong, morality and survival, drawn in the wet concrete of desperation. Annabelle's thoughts raced. What could she offer him to break this horrifying standoff? Listen. I have a daughter. She's back there. Annabelle pointed toward the lifeboat, her heart aching with hope and fear. Let me go, and I promise to help you too. We can stay together. They'll come for us. The gunman's brow furrowed like a storm cloud over his eyes, casting shadows across his face. For an instant, doubt flickered, and Annabelle seized it like a lifeline. Think about it. They'll leave you behind just like they did me if you hurt anyone else. But if we work together, she felt a surge of courage, a flicker of hope. Please, we can survive this. Time stretched painfully as he considered her words, rain sliding off the barrel of his gun. But before he could answer, another crash rattled the ship, eruption loud in the storm's wild symphony. The deck beneath them shuddered violently, sending Annabelle tumbling sideways. "Jake!" she cried out, momentarily losing sight of him. Fear clawed at her throat, an iron grip. But the gunman was too caught up in his own turmoil to notice the shift. When Annabelle scrambled back to her feet, her heart sank. The ship was fracturing, the sound of wood splintering echoing in her ears. She had to get Jake, had to pull him away from danger. "Jake, we need to move." Suddenly, she found him struggling to stand, blood still pooling around him, but a fire ignited in his eyes. He reached for her hand, but then his gaze shot past her. "Annabelle, watch out." The gunman lunged, but this time, Annabelle was ready. She ducked just as Jake surged forward, tackling the assailant to the wet deck. They collided hard, all three bodies collapsing into a jumbled mess, chaos churning around them. In that heartbeat, everything changed. Annabelle's muscles tensed, ready to fight, but another crash sounded. The ship shuddered again, and this time it was accompanied by the horrifying sound of metal screaming against metal. With panic tearing at her insides, Annabelle shouted, "We have to get off this ship. Now!" Time was slipping. The lifeboat was drifting farther away, and the rising water claimed the deck. But she couldn't leave them. "Help him!" Jake yelled, grappling with the gunman, who was wild and frantic but losing steam. Annabelle hesitated, torn, but then made the choice. She rushed forward, adrenaline spurring her on. Now or never. As the storm continued to rage, the ship's structure creaked ominously overhead. Would they survive the sinking chaos together, or would this moment be their undoing? The uncertainty loomed as Annabelle grappled with not just the woman in her, but the fierce protector. She had to face the storm of emotions swirling inside her, but first, she had to save Jake, and just when she thought they might escape this, another flash of lightning illuminated a dark figure in the shadows, watching them with cruel interest. Who was it, hidden among the chaos, and what did they want? Danger was lurking everywhere, and she could feel it creeping closer. The moment the lightning flashed, Annabelle froze, her breath catching in her throat. The figure standing in the shadows was cloaked in darkness, but the way they moved, swift and deliberate, sent a chill straight to her bones. It was a man, she could tell that much, and he was watching them with an intensity that felt predatory. "Annabelle! Focus!" Jake shouted, tearing her eyes away from the ominous presence. He was still grappling with the gunman, but she could see the fatigue starting to wash over him. The storm raged like a furious beast all around them, a fitting backdrop for the chaos unfolding. "Now!" Jake spat, his voice strained as he wrestled to gain the upper hand. Annabelle lunged forward, adrenaline coursing through her veins, pushing her feet against the slick deck. She realized time was running out. The ship was practically screaming for help, metal joints creaking and groaning under the relentless assault of the waves. She reached the thrashed figure on the ground, now gripping Jake's wrist in a white-knuckled frenzy as they struggled for control of the gun. Annabelle's hands were shaking, but she couldn't let fear paralyze her. She'd come too far to let hesitation swallow her now. "Get off him!" With one swift motion, Annabelle shoved her shoulder into the gunman's side, her body colliding with his. The shock sent the weapon skidding across the deck, but as it slid away, the storm let out an earth-shattering crack of thunder that drowned their cries. The gunman, now unarmed but fueled by desperation, turned to Annabelle with wild eyes. "You don't know what they're capable of. I can't let it end like this." His voice broke, brow glistening with sweat despite the rain drenching them. "Then help us get out of here," Annabelle cried, the words barely escaping over the roar of the storm. She could see the conflict in his eyes, fear pits against survival instincts. "Annabelle, behind you." Jake's warning snapped her focus back. In the corner of her eye, she saw the shadow shift, no longer just lurking, but advancing. The dark figure had decided to join the fray, bearing down toward them with menace in every stride. "This is not over." The gunman yelled, shoving Jake away as he scrambled to his feet, retreating from the advancing threat. The stranger was upon them now, his grin sickly and wide, illuminated by another flash of lightning. In that brief moment, everything came into focus: the twisted smile, the glimmer of intent in his eyes. Annabelle felt the ground shake beneath her. Was it from the storm or from sheer dread? Without warning, the stranger lunged, and panic overtook her. Annabelle threw herself in front of Jake just as the man reached for them, claws extended like a beast ready to pounce. "What do you want?" she yelled, feeling the storm's intensity mirror the surge of adrenaline within her. His laughter echoed, chilling her to the core, before he hissed, "What I want is to finish what you started." And at that moment, Annabelle realized whoever this shadowy figure was, he was linked to her past, somehow tied to the chaos that had descended on the ship. The secret she had buried so deep was about to resurface, stronger than any storm. "What do you mean?" Fear gripped her heart, but she pushed it back. There was too much at stake right now. "Let us just say," he leaned closer, his voice low and conspiratorial, "the real nightmare has only just begun." A sharp crack split the air as an explosion rocked the ship, and chaos erupted again. Metal shrieked, wood splintered, and the deck began to tilt dangerously beneath their feet. "Annabelle, we have to go," Jake shouted, grappling her hand tightly. But the stranger's gaze remained locked on hers, promising revelations and horrors that could shatter everything she held dear. Would she uncover the truth behind the terrifying connection, or would the storm take everything she fought for? Just as she turned to flee, the ship lurched again, throwing Annabelle off balance. Would this be the last stand, or could they still escape the tide of darkness rising around them? Annabelle's heart raced as she and Jake scrambled to their feet. The storm raged around them, rain pelting their skin, mixing with the saltwater from the frigid sea. The ship shuddered again, groaning its death throes, and the reality of their situation hit her hard. This wasn't just a struggle for survival, it was a fight against time itself. "Keep moving," Jake yelled, pulling her away from the edge. The shadows whispered dangers and the lurking figure's laughter echoed like phantoms in her mind. Every step they took was heavy with uncertainty. But they had to push through. They had to find a way to escape. "Where's the lifeboat?" Annabelle shouted over the roaring winds. There were so many terrified faces. So much desperation. But she could also feel sparks of resolve igniting a small army of souls fighting back against despair. She looked around, searching desperately for a way to safety. The stranger who had threatened them moments ago vanished into the chaos, swallowed by the panicked mob. Annabelle felt a flicker of relief, but it was immediately overshadowed by the reality of their escape. "Look!" Jake pointed toward a flickering light, a lifeboat not too far, teetering on the enormous waves as it fought to stay afloat. "We have to get to it." In that moment, Annabelle's instincts kicked in. Life surged through her body, powering her feet as she started running, dragging Jake along. They navigated through twisted bodies clamoring for survival, cries cutting through the storm like a knife. Panic danced on the surface, but somewhere deep inside her, a fire blazed. "Over here!" she shouted to others near them, rallying their spirits. "This way! We can make it!" And surprisingly, some turned, following her lead, fueled by courage and instinct. But as they raced towards the lifeboat, a violent crash rocked the deck. Annabelle's feet stumbled, and she nearly fell. She swayed to regain balance, gripping onto Jake's arm for support. "Stay close," he urged, his brow furrowed in determination. They continued forging ahead, dodging debris and gathering survivors along the way, feeling a camaraderie build with each frightened face they passed. But the sound of thunder cracked loudly again, and the ship let out another anguished moan. "Annabelle!" Jake's shout rang clearly through the chaos. There was desperation in his eyes, the weight of fear pressing down on him as they drew nearer to the lifeboat. They stumbled past a young couple holding onto each other, eyes wide with terror, hands grasping desperately at their fleeting hope. "Help us," the woman cried. Annabelle's heart ached for them, knowing too well their shared plight. Time was slipping away. Just as they reached the base of the lifeboat, the gunman re-emerged, rage igniting in his eyes. Annabelle's stomach twisted. "You can't get away from me," he screamed, and the world turned still. Every heart raced. The darkness around them thickened with terrifying inevitability. But Annabelle refused to back down. "You don't have to do this. You can choose to let us all go. Enough of your pleas." The gunman advanced, and chaos erupted again with frenzied screams. Annabelle lifted her arms instinctively, ready to shield Jake and the others. Behind the gunman, the ship's structure creaked louder than ever, as though warning them of its imminent collapse. Annabelle's pulse quickened, time was running out. "Now!" Jake shouted, and in a split second, he lunged forward. The gunman hadn't expected it, and his expression flickered from fury to surprise as Jake tackled him, sending them both tumbling to the deck. "Get on the boat!" Annabelle yelled, urging people behind her. The lifeboat was in chaos, rocking dangerously in the waves. "We're running out of time." But then the deck groaned ominously, and she could see it, the frigid sea beckoning, ready to devour everything in its path. As she clambered onto the lifeboat, she caught a glimpse of Jake struggling with the gunman. Her heart stuttered. "Jake! I'll get him!" he shouted, resolve etched on his face. But a shudder rocked the ship again, and Annabelle felt fear seize her. "No!" she shouted, panic and desperation flooding her thoughts. "We can't leave without him." A moment of hesitation passed, then resolve built inside her again. She couldn't abandon him, no matter the cost. "I'll go back," she cried, heart racing as she stepped off the lifeboat, ready to run through chaos again. "Annabelle!" Jake's voice broke through the din, raw with urgency. "You can't. You'll drown." But determination coursed through her veins. "I have to. He's my brother." No, the shouting and gunfire erupted behind her, urgent calls blending into a fierce storm of chaos, and then a crash sounded as the ship shuddered again. "Go!" Jake yelled, panic lacing his voice. Suddenly, she felt her feet slipping. The ship's last breath was escaping it. The descent was quick, dark shadows consuming everything. "Jake!" The scream tore from her lungs as she reached for him, but he was too far away. "Go now, Annabelle. For everyone." The weight of his sacrifice hit her hard. Tears streamed down her face as she felt the pull of the sea beneath her, cold, dark, and ready to claim yet another life. She lifted herself to the lifeboat, feeling the intensity in her heart. She would fight for him and for all those left behind. Together or apart, they would keep the flame alive. And when the lifeboat finally drifted away from the sinking Titanic, she looked back hoping against hopelessness. The nightmare was far from over. But with every soul she saved, every spark of hope she held onto, they would stand a chance. As the storm raged, so did the echoes of their sacrifice. She promised herself, she would find a way to reunite with Jake and finish this fight against fate, no matter the darkness that lay ahead. Don't wait any longer, folks. You need to subscribe now or you might just miss the next part of this incredible saga. Smash that like button to show your support and help boost the algorithm. Flood the comments section with your thoughts and theories about how this saga will continue. And please, share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see how these survivors battle against fate. Don't let this thrilling journey end here. Let's go.